Hey everybody, I'm here today to talk about the LNG pipeline and give you an update about what's currently happening. To give you some basic information on this project, it is a proposed liquefied natural gas pipeline to be built from the Nevada-Oregon border. It would span 229 miles to the Coos Bay estuary in Coos Bay, Oregon. It would connect to an already existing pipeline. And the idea is to transport fracked gas from the Rocky Mountains and Western Canada through existing pipeline systems and get it to the West Coast to transport it to overseas markets, specifically Asia, where these large oil interests can get a lot more money per cubic yard of fracked gas. To make it very clear up front, this is an export project. It is not infrastructure that would be used by Oregonians. It is not energy sourcing that Oregonians would use. It is simply an export project up front. The counties that it would cross is Klamath, Jackson, Douglas, and Coos. In the meantime, it would cross 3 national forests, and it would cross approximately 485 waterways, 5 of which are some pretty major rivers: the Rogue River, the Klamath River, the Umpqua River, the Coquille River, and the Coos River. The problem with this is a lot of these waterways are drinking sources for municipalities across the state, one of them being Medford, Oregon. The construction of the pipeline puts approximately 150,000 people at risk if and when there is an accident during or after the construction process. It would affect approximately 700 landowners, 200 of which are threatened by eminent domain, which I would like to define for you. Eminent domain is defined as the right of a government or its agent to expropriate private property for public use with payment or compensation. So I'd like to highlight the public use portion of that definition. Again, this is an export project. It is not meant for the use of Oregonians. It is meant for foreign gain. So these landowners have their private property rights threatened by a foreign corporation who wants to run a 36-inch pipeline and create a 95-foot clear cut on each side through their land. Not just one singular case, but there are many cases, one specifically where a landowner would have 2 miles of his land taken, and this foreign corporation wants to give him $33,000 for 2 miles of his land. Of course, it's not equivalent to the value of what his land is worth. Tribal territories, cultural resources, and burial grounds are threatened by the proposal of this pipeline project, and there are several indigenous tribes that have come out in opposition. To name them is the Klamath tribe, the Siletz tribe, the Karuk tribe, the Yurok, and the Talawa-Dini. The 200-acre terminal located in Coos Bay would be built on a tsunami zone, putting 16,000 people at risk if and when there was an accident. There are some major concerns for geological hazards from people along the pipeline route. For one, the pipeline would be built through extremely wildfire-prone areas. And anyone who lives in Southern Oregon knows that we experience larger and larger wildfires every year. Methane would be emitted and is involved in the transport of natural gas. Methane is highly flammable, and the liquefied fracked gas would be odorless, meaning if there was a leak, it would be extremely hard to detect. And if it leaked, it would leak methane, which, as I said, is highly flammable. Being transported through a wildfire-prone area, you can imagine what happens next. According to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the pipeline route would be built over erosion-prone areas, landslide-prone areas, and it would be built over the Cascadian subduction zone, which we are due for a major earthquake, quite frankly, any day now. Tourism would be at risk during and after the construction of the pipeline. Just for example, at each waterway that the pipeline would cross, construction crews would have to either horizontally directional drill, blast, or dam through each waterway to complete the construction. So as you can imagine, if you are a river guide or a fisherman, this could be extremely detrimental to your livelihood. The project would become the largest greenhouse gas polluter in the state of Oregon by 2020, although if everything goes according to their plans, the construction would be completed in 2024, meaning the potential for greenhouse gas pollution only rises after completion. Approximately 885 acres of our national forests from the Bureau of Land Management and the Department of Interior will be given to this foreign corporation, which I find pretty striking. The turbidity and sediment in the Coos Bay would be extremely detrimental to the $18 million clamming, crabbing, and fishing industry of the Coos Bay. Outside of the turbidity and the sediment that would be increased, the LNG vessels, approximately 120 a year, that enter all four channels and into the bay, would cause delays for local traffic, and it would have precedent over local traffic, meaning that once the LNG terminal is built and these tankers begin to enter the area, they are the most important entity in the area over the current residents that reside there and, quite frankly, rely on these water sources for their livelihood. It would negatively impact the Coos Bay housing market. It would have significant impact to safe air operations according to the FAA, and it would have a significant impact to the Southern Oregon Regional Airport. So after hearing all of this, you're probably thinking, what can I do to make sure this project does not go through? At this time, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is the lead federal agency overseeing this project, is having a public comment period. The comments are due by July 5th. They are asking if there is a certificate of need for this project and if there is a public interest. The company applied for this permit back in 2016 and it was denied because of the influx of comments that they received and because they deemed that it was not in the public's interest. So they have received approximately 9,000 comments in opposition of this project. And that's completely outside of the 42,000 comments that were submitted to the Department of Environmental Quality. I'd like to think they've received less comments for this federal agency because it is a little bit more difficult to make a comment. You have to either submit it online through their website, or you have to mail it in the mail. You have to include very specific docket numbers, and you have to be really specific in how you format it. So they do make it a little bit more difficult. However, it's a really generalized permit. So if you even want to say something as simple as, I'm a fishing guide and this would really mess with my livelihood, that is perfectly acceptable. If you want to write a 12-page report like I did on why you think this is detrimental to Oregon, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I'll leave all of the information below on a really cool comment writing guide from No LNG Exports, and I will link some sources. Most of the information in this video I obtained from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission drafted environmental impact statement. And this impact statement is about 1,100 pages long. I've only made it to 100 and so pages. And this impact statement is a really big deal because there's a lot of other agencies that are actually using this environmental impact statement as their own source to approve or deny the permits, because this pipeline company has to go through federal, state, and local permittal process, and they have to go through a ton of different agencies and organizations to get permission essentially for this pipeline. So it's really important that we get comments submitted and we let them know that there is absolutely no public need, no public interest for this project, and there is no certificate of need, as it causes so much more destruction than it does bring good. Thank you.